Testing, testing. I recorded this 3 times already, but I'm going to try again. Okay, so this is a video that is going to be made in 3 parts. The first part is going to be an overview, talking about this project, my goals, my motivation, the idea for it, and talking about what this game is and why I wanted to make it, and why you should play it, and what I hope to get from it. The second part of this is going to be the analysis section, basically just talking about taking the idea that I had and trying to analyze about how I can use it to better understand why people play games. My thesis for this project is to try and analyze the diversity of different playstyles through multi-dimensional puzzles. Now that doesn't have to make sense to you, or you don't have to understand what that means, but I'm going to talk more about it in the analysis section, talking about why I wanted to make this particular game and try and analyze the different ways in which people can play a game. If you are just watching this video, the most important part is just watching the overview section so that you can play the game. The other parts are just for me to document why I'm making this. And if you're interested in it, you can. The third part of this is going to be the technical section. So I really just want to document my process through system design and documenting the different technologies that I use for my own learning experience, and so that I can look back at this and see my progress. Okay, so part 1. This is going to be the overview section. So about a week ago, I went and volunteered at my first game jam. I did my own game jam about a month ago, and it was where I was actually volunteering or actually participating and making a game. But this time I was just volunteering and helping different participants try and create their own game. And it was really interesting being around all these different people who are passionate about making games. A game jam is really just an event where a mass of people can come to one spot who are all passionate about making games, who all have different kind of skills, can come to one spot and try and make a game across a set amount of days around a particular kind of theme. So it was really interesting being around all those different passionate people, and it really does spark something around being those kind of energies. It really gives you a sense of drive and a sense of inspiration to make something of your own when you can see people who are just working so hard towards a goal. And it really brought up this thought experiment I've had for a long time, and sort of posed this question to people who do play games and try and understand more about if a certain kind of game can be made. And it's this idea of, could a game be made that has 2 points to it? 1, it is a game that exists entirely in one room. And 2, could this game be made if it also has no violence? And this is a point that I thought was really interesting, because I feel like a lot of games use both of those things to be able to progress the story and to connect a player. I feel like a lot of having multiple rooms or having multiple locations allows a person to feel connected. By establishing distance, a user must understand their own intention and motivation. So if a user is at point A and they must get to point B, the more distance there is between those 2 points establishes the player's motivation to get to that point. It is a goal. But by doing that, they are essentially creating more distance between where the person has to be and where they are. And that's very interesting. I find that is used a lot in games to be able to progress the story. It's also used by establishing what the player wants and how they feel connected to the person that they're playing as, right? To be able to choose path A, they must also choose to not choose any other path. And those other paths may change throughout the game, but they are choosing for the more amount of time that they're on that path to always be on that path and to work towards this goal that they're trying to get to. And I thought that was a really interesting point. The second point about that is a game being made with no violence. I find a lot of games use violence as a way of creating a reward system, similar to how a person could travel from point A to point B and be rewarded finally once they reach that point. And a player must know if they want to get to that point B. It is their goal, it is their motivation, and the more that they stay on that path, the more they feel connected to that player, to that character. The same way I find with violence and combat systems. A lot of times they take a lot more skill, they take more challenge. There may be a lot of times where you're combating against a similar enemy and trying different play styles, and by trying a diversity of different play styles, you may, over trial and error, get to the play style that is successful. And through that process of trial and error, once you get to that success, it feels more rewarding. And the reason why I wanted to think about a game that doesn't have violence is because I find it creates a division, this idea of violence. It creates an otherness. It creates this thing of, I am different from you. I am different from my environment, and I exemplify that by combating with it. And that creates a sense of identity for the person who's playing, because the more they play and the more combat, the more they understand themselves and the more understand how they are different from any other character in this story. But I find, for example, a game like Stardew Valley does this really well, where it has no violence, and because of that, the intention is no longer about dividing yourself from the environment. You are actually connected more to the environment. The story is more about how you exist within your community. A lot of the reason why you build up your farm, find certain items, complete certain tasks, do certain quests, is because you want to progress the state of the community. And I think that is a really interesting way that they try to accomplish that through that game. So, through this thought experiment, talking more with people at the Game Jam, I started to think more about how a game like this could be accomplished, and we came up with certain ideas. But I do think that you could make a game that is established in one room and has no violence, because the core points of those things is more important than the thing themselves. The idea of traversing from point A to point B is not necessarily about the idea of traveling, and the idea of violence is not necessarily because people are violent or because they want to fight things. Both of those things are about identity and about reward. So a person must feel valued for being able to stick on the path that they want to be on, and finding a closer connection to the character that they're playing as by sticking on that character's path. The same way with violence, a character should be able to connect by better understanding the playstyle over a set of attempts and being able to better understand how they can optimize for the game that they're playing as, and feel rewarded by finally achieving the path that they are choosing and by understanding the game on that attempt. So that brings me to introducing the game that I created and trying to understand more about this idea of creating a game that exists in one room with no violence. And this game, which I'm excited to introduce you to because I've been working on it for the past week, and it's still very bare bones, it's still rough draft, but I'm using it as a proof of concept to be able to better understand this idea that I'm trying to analyze more. This game is called The Prisoner's Dilemmas, plural. And your motivation, the setting for this game, I want you to imagine that you wake up from a deep sleep. You are trapped in this concrete cell. You have no recollection of why you're here or what brought you to this place, but you and another suspect are being charged for a murder with a sentence of up to 10 years. You don't know if you did this or not. You don't know who the other person on the other side of that wall is, but your goal is to learn more about yourself, this suspect in this murder case, to be able to better make actions that help you progress through the story and to be able to walk free. You walk free by either doing two things. You do one, which is you make actions that learn more about this case. You learn more about yourself if you are innocent or a criminal. You learn more about the suspect if they are innocent or if they are criminal. And you learn more about the case, who they suspect as the criminal. And at any point in the game, you can put in a vote confessing to the cops or stating what you think the crime was and who did it and da 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 da. And if you are correct, you are able to walk free, even if you were the criminal. Even if you were both were the criminal, if you say what actually happened and you are correct 100%, you walk free. Or the other way you can win the game is you can use your confidence to be able to trick the other person, to be able to boost how confident you are. Oh yeah, I'm gonna walk free. And if you are able to overpower the other suspect, you are able to convince them to confess, and you are able to walk free because they took the fault for it. So there are two ways you can actually play this game, which is really interesting, and it allows the person, I think, who is playing the game to be able to analyze how they want to play the game and the different play style that they choose in trying to accomplish this goal. The fact that a goal can be accomplished in multiple different ways allows the person to think about how they want to be able to accomplish it. For example, if you started the game up and without even ever understanding anything about who your character is or the other character or the case or anything, you can immediately put in your votes for what happened and who the criminal is and who is innocent and what the murder was. You could put in all the details. And if you're correct, you'll walk free. In an instant, you could speedrun it, right? But the chances of that happening are very low. So the more time that you spend in the case, the more chance you have of understanding what happens. But the more time you spend in the case, the more chance the other person has of overpowering you. So there is a inverse relationship between time spent and understanding. And I think this is a really interesting thing because it presses the person to be able to make a decision, to work through it, but also be methodical about how they want to play the game. So I've sort of gone into a basic understanding, but I'm going to talk more about how this game is played. It's a very basic card system, and I chose to use a card system because I feel like it's a really easy way of prototyping basic movements and actions that a person can make. You don't have to design player movements or combat systems. A card system allows you to have 4 basic moves that we have in this game. You have Trick, Deceive, and then Confess and Attack. Confess and Learn, I think. And because of that, you have these 4 moves, and 2 of them are defense, and 2 of them are attack. And they can have their own level. So you see this card here. I'm just going to show a card here. At the top left corner, there is a blue gem, and then there's a number in the middle of it. And that number represents the energy that it takes. So if you're doing something that requires a lot of energy, it means like, oh, I'm really trying to convince this person. I'm really trying to get something out of them, right? So that takes a lot more energy. And the more energy means that you start off with 10 energy points, and slowly over time, the more if you're taking these really high energy movements, the harder it is to keep up with it, right? So you can do that. You have the gem here that tells you how much energy it takes. You have the point here that describes the name of the card and a little description of how it acts to your story. And then you have a little symbol at the bottom there which talks about whether this is a defense move or an action move, attack move. So that's the basic part of the game. You can either be defensive and learn more about your situation, or attack and try and convince the other person to do something. And I think this is really interesting because it now allows you to think about how you want to optimize your move for this game. Because there's an energy system similar to like Hearthstone, it means that you can't just use the most expensive move to begin with, right? You can't just say, oh, I have a 5 energy move, I'm going to use a 5 energy, 5 energy, 5 energy, 5 energy, and just hope you get lucky every single time and get a 5 energy move. Because of that, you could start off very strong and use this 5 card energy card, but you're going to be spent out of energy really quickly, and soon you're not going to be able to do anything. And then the person who you're competing against might have a better move than you, and you'll just be losing over and over again. So I think this is a really interesting tactic that allows you to think more efficiently about how you want to play the game, which I thought was really interesting. I'm going through all of this really quickly because I just want to create this video already. It took me so long to record this and just starting and stopping, but this is just documenting the process that I had for creating this game And it was really interesting learning about Svelte and SvelteKit and trying to make this game and trying to think more about like how I wanted to do it and what I wanted to do. So if you have the chance, you can play this game by going to this URL. Yeah, and let me know what you think. Let me know what it's like to play this game and what your thoughts were. I'm probably going to add a Google form on the win or lose screen, and so you can fill out those questions and try and like help me better understand what your play style was playing the game and what your thoughts were playing the game. But yeah, thank you for watching. I might report this, but yeah. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think. This has been my video, and I'll see you soon.